Welcome to Sylvan Mist Designs. I've got another dollar store find for us today in these glass candle lanterns. Now, in the store, you're actually going to find them with these little handles on them with the cord and the little collar. I've actually taken them off. They're pretty easy to take off. They're pretty flexible, as you can see here. Now, this little tab, once it slots through the hole, you can actually just bend this back over like that, and then the collars will go back on. But yeah, it comes off pretty easy. You just have to be a little careful. They're delicate. This part comes off too if you need to. Let me get that back on there. Now these ones actually, they do come in two colors. Actually, they didn't last year when I looked, but this year I actually picked up the silver. So this one's the nice bright silver, and then the other ones are gold. Now I'm going to clean these up today. I've actually just got a cotton ball here. It's covered with isopropyl alcohol, a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And I do just want to make sure to go over all of these really, really well. I did my best to try to find two glasses that didn't have any damage on them, any imperfections in the glass, or, the best I could. And now I just want to make sure to clean them off really, really well to make sure that there isn't any residue from my fingerprints, dirt, dust, anything. My tools today are going to be the Happy Dotting Company, per the usual. These are going to be flat-headed tools, and I've got them up to a size 8, as well as my nail art tools. This one is a size 3, so that's the largest, and then this one here, that is the 0.5, and then both ends of these are a 1.5. I'll be using these for swooshes. Okay, paint. Chery Merlot, my favorite color. I've got the Cinder Rose, and this one I couldn't find in the deco art, so this one is the folk art. And then I've got Cotton Candy and a silver. I like this silver. It's a very bright, almost pearl-like silver. Then I've got my glass medium. The glass medium just makes sure that the paint actually adheres to the glass itself. I'm going to be adding just a tiny bit of this to each of the paint wells. And then once I'm finished with my project, I'll be able to oven cure it since I've taken off these little collars. Now I got to get my paint added into my palette. Now again, I'm adding just a little bit of the glass medium to each of the wells. I can add up to a 90% ratio of the glass medium to paint to make this work. Now, when you're stirring these, the only thing to remember is to keep the tool down against the bottom of the palette, just to not let in a whole bunch of air so that you get a bunch of bubbles. But I typically don't have a huge problem with bubbles with the Deco Art Americana and this mix. However, the folk art paint that I have, the Cinder Rose, I do tend to get a few bubbles in it, and so I do kind of have to tap that down and pop the bubbles. But the folk art is just a little bit thicker, and again, I usually do get a few bubbles in that one, but not on the Deco Art. All right, let's get into this. I'm going to start with an 8. We're going to get a nice big fat center dot. Now, I'm not using any kind of a grid, but I just want to get these relatively centered. We're going to go with that 2 in the dark Chery Merlot just to get a few dots around the center. Now we're going into the 2 again, but this time in that light cotton candy. I think it makes such a pretty contrast to that dark Chery Merlot. now that that's done, I've got a 4, and I'm gonna make 2 dots here roughly across from each other, and then a 2 for a top dot. These do not have to be equal distances apart. Now I'm gonna take the 1.5, and we're gonna do a set of walk dots around these. Now we're gonna switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna do a 3.5, and we're gonna make just 1 dot on the top here. Then we're gonna go down a whole size, and I'm just gonna do 1 dot on either side of the initial here. I don't tend to use this often, but I'm gonna pick up my nail art stylus. This is the 3 to actually do a swoosh on either side of these walked dots here. I'm gonna stick with this 3, and then we're gonna go into this dark Merlot. I am adding just another swoosh right under the tip of the previous one, just to give this one a little width. I sort of do want these to look remotely like maybe flower petals. And then because I'm not making the swoosh quite as long as the one next to it, they will look a little bit fatter. We're going down to the blue tool here. Now for me, that blue tool is going to be a 2.6. And again, this one is just under the head of the one next to it. All right, 1.5. Now we're actually gonna do a few little dots here to kind of round out our little flower pattern. These could almost be done with just that, but I'm gonna take the 5 and we're gonna do another row of walked dots, kind of the same sort of flower pattern over to the side. Essentially, I'm going to be duplicating the pattern from underneath, just with an alternate color. So again, I'm gonna put 1 dot on the top here. Then we're gonna switch to a lower size, and I'm going to get 1 dot on either side of the initial one. And again, that's going to be 1 size smaller. And then I'm gonna go straight back into the stylus. That's a 3. To do the swooshes. This one again is the 2.6. You know, sometimes it's much easier just to pick these up and hold them in my hand than it is to try to keep them down on this Lazy Susan. So I apologize, the view isn't fantastic. All right, now then, I do want to get a couple more finishing touches on this with the dots. Now, I've only ever done this particular pattern or shape once before, and this was on some bookmarks that I had done in this exact same color pattern. So I sort of wanted to carry this through and make a set. So what I'm doing is I'm putting down 1 dot, and then I'm making a triangle on both the tip and the tail. Now, I initially started out putting the dot down or using my tool to actually do 2 swooshes, one facing each direction, sort of like a yin-yang, and then coloring in the middle. However, for this one, I found out that going through this little diamond shape was very cute. I did like it a lot, and it was easier to do than the leaf shape. So I'm actually taking this first one away and then adding back in just the diamond. I like that diamond much better. We are gonna get one in here of all of the colors, and I'm just sort of randomly selecting the directions of these. Now that that main part is done, I'm adding a little tiny bit of silver to my palette. Get that mixed up. And I'm just gonna do some accents here. I'm gonna get a center dot with these leaf patterns. And I did wanna leave this in. There was actually a tiny dot that had smeared into the center of this Chery Merlot. So all I've done is just take a little bit of Chery Merlot paint on my stylus to cover that up. Now back to my accenting here. So I'm just adding a silver dot at the bottom of the dot underneath it, just to kind of draw your eye again towards the center and give just a few glittery accents on this. Because the center is so very dark, these very tiny micro dots in the silver make such a big difference. I do want to carry this silver out into this kind of diamond patterns on the outside. I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to do that, and I'm not positive that I really like the 2 or 3 dots that I've put on the outside here, but I think they'll be okay. And last but not least, I'm going to take the 0.5 stylus tool, and we're just going to do some very thin lines here on the outside of these dark Merlot dots. And that's gonna do it. I certainly hope you guys enjoy these. If you've stuck around this long, make sure that you're subscribed and give a like if you do enjoy the content. Again, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.